to the latest episode of The Lisa Pizik Show. This is such an amazing episode that I have lined up here for you because we're diving right into mental health. Right into our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, all the balls that we're juggling, and I'm just calling the elephant in the room. People who are struggling, if you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, burnt out, I'm just gonna push through, keep going, grind my way, I'll figure it all out by myself. I'm not gonna tell anyone that I'm struggling. You're never gonna see behind the curtain, behind closed doors, what's really going on. Yet when you lay your head on the pillow at night, you're like, am I really living? Is this, every day's feeling like Groundhog Day? And how do I change that? So I'm so honored today to have an expert here to talk to us, Dr. Ganz Ferrance. Dr. Ganz, hello. I'm so glad you're here.
I am so glad to be here too, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I enjoy talking to you. Our conversation's off the air, but I'm really honored that you're willing to share your audience with me and letting me have this platform to talk with people. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm so excited to dig in. Now, let me just tell you who Dr. Ganz is. So he's a registered psychologist, a speaker, an author, a coach, has a PhD in counseling psychology and an MA in developmental and educational psychology. He is the former public education coordinator and former vice president of the Psychologists Association of Alberta. He holds the John C. Patterson Media Award from the Psychologists Association of Alberta and the Rosalina Smith Award from the National Black Coalition of Canada for exceptional and prolonged service from an individual from the Black community conducting a business. You've been around since the early 90s. You've been helping individuals, couples, families, corporations beat burnout, reduce their level of stress, improve their relationships, and enjoy more success. You've worked with the toughest of the tough, including fourth-generation gangbangers, hardened oil and gas workers, battle-tested CEOs and entrepreneurs, and stressed-out law enforcement officers. You're a master at showing people in these high-stress, no-nonsense, the high-stress occupations, the no-nonsense practical strategies to stay focused, make healthy decisions under pressure, and boost communication skills to reduce conflict during difficult situations. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we've really been in a difficult situation like lately, have we?
It's a little bit with the pandemic worldwide. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's just been, I think, mental health has always been this thing. Mm-hmm. It's always been this elephant in the room. It's always been this misunderstood thing that I think people don't maybe necessarily know how to navigate. And then even if you haven't suffered with mental health or you haven't ever been diagnosed or haven't ever had anything, when your whole world is shifted and rocked, it changes the day to day and it changes who you are.
I really think that this is sort of the silver lining in this whole pandemic experience, right? The whole world, like you said, has gone through this together, and it's a special kind of stress, which we could talk about. I can tell you why that is, but I think that the good thing about it is that mental health, our mental well-being. I don't even like the mental health term because it gets so loaded, right, and so much energy around it. Even at our association, we prefer psychological well-being is what we use, right? Because it's kinder, it's gentler, it's more positive, right? And it's not enough not to have a mental health issue, which lots of us, are dealing with. We should have a good life, right? And that's what we're really all about. It's about how do we have a good life? How do we have psychological and emotional well-being? How good can you stand it? Let's see, right? And that's a much better place to start than thinking that you're broken and you got to be fixed, right? Let's just see how far we can go on the positive side.
Yeah, and that's what I love about you is your approach to the work that you do and the way you handle people with care is so different. Because I think there's this conception that I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, there's innately something wrong with me, I'm a wuss because I can't cope, or
and if I go talk to the shrink, they're going to know.
Right. And then I'm going to go see the shrink who has his clipboard and his little pencil or pen that he's clicking away at. And he's going to tell me to lay on the couch, and all you're going to do is write, judge, judge, judge. What
Yep,
are you writing about me? No,
that's right.
thank you. I'd rather suffer in silence.
Oh, well, I would too, honestly. Like if that's how it really was, I wouldn't go to anybody either. You know what I mean? I've been working in the field. Well, it's over 30 years now, right? But I've also been on the other side of the couch, so to speak, for 30 years. I've been in therapy myself for 30 years. And I should have probably been in for longer. Like I should have gone earlier, but I didn't have the opportunity. But thankfully, I was able to do that. But that's exactly who I would want to work with. I would want to work with somebody who is real and is talking to me and gives me actual, like, real world solutions, right? And fortunately, many people in psychology are like this. We do offer solutions. We're not sitting behind you writing down and writing stuff down, and you know what I mean, that's silent judging. So there's a huge misconception around what it is we do and what help should look like. And listen, the other part of this is that just like anything else, you are the consumer. You have the right to shop around, and you have the right to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So the other person, the professional, might be a decent person. They might have good credentials, but you know what? There's not that sweet spot. You don't kind of feel that connection. You don't have to go. It's okay. Like, just thank you. Thanks for playing. I'm going to shop around some more. So you are in the driver's seat when it comes to getting help. And, some basic things you want to ask, have they worked with people like you before? What are their credentials, their education, those sorts of things. But the most important thing is exactly this, Lisa. It's about, how do I feel when I'm with the person? Do I feel safe? Do I feel like I'm understood? Do I feel like they're going to support me and help me move forward to get my goals met? And can they see and, in a sense, shepherd me in the places that I need to go that I may not even know that I need to go yet?
Yeah, and there's no like levels of who suffers the worst or whose pain and suffering is more severe than someone else.
Right.
I shopped around when I was first like looking in my own life to unpack some things from my teens and as a child, and I can remember a few therapists are saying to me, well, but you have a you're doing great, like you're great, like you've got a wonderful husband, you have a great child, you're successful in business, you have a great home, like from what you came from, I've seen so much worse than you, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm still like angry at times.
Exactly.
And I'm still upset, and I don't when this holiday comes around and I'm angry, I don't want to feel that way. How do I fix that?
Right.
So I think it's like, whether it's the typical like, I can't get out of bed, or I'm going to harm myself, or to like, I just get really angry on Mother's Day, or I get really mad at Christmas.
Right.
I think it's exactly like you said. It's someone who listens, who understands where you're trying to go, and is going to be able to help you get there. And ultimately, you have the choice and the power in what you want in your life and how you want.
Absolutely.
To go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately, there's two sort of philosophies around help, right? And you see this with physical health. You for sure see this with emotional health. There's what I call the deficiency model, right? Where I'm going to look for what's wrong. I'm going to diagnose you, and then we're going to try to fix you. Okay. And, there are people like that. There are people in psychology, social work. There are people in the medical side that do that, right? Then there's the optimization approach, right? Which is how do we help you to have the best situation you can, given wherever you start. Doesn't really matter, right? And I think, going to somebody when your life looks like it's functioning, but you still, but I get pissed off over here, and I don't like when I yell at my kid, and I don't, I feel I got all this success on paper, but I can't really enjoy it, right? What do I do with that? Well, you're fine. What are you complaining about? I see, like I got schizophrenic patients and blah, blah, right? Well, those are probably not the right fit, right?
Right.
And so you want to find somebody who can take you from where you are and help you get as far as you want to go. In my book, and we talked about that off air, right? I've got this term. It's an acronym called PEP, P-E-P. And it's early in the book, and I talk about it being Perpetually Evolving Perfection. And I say, this is who we are. This is the truth. If, for me, I have certain deficits in my life based on how I grew up and my parents and, some of the things I experienced. Given who I am and all the stuff I'm sort of dragging around with me, I'm pretty okay. I'm doing pretty well for having that. But there's still some other stuff that I'd like to do. So, but it's far easier to start from a place of joy, perfection, and wholeness, and then evolve in the direction that I want to go versus feeling like I'm broken, I'm screwed up, I'm not whole, and then trying to like fill in the holes. Do you know what I mean? I don't do that with any of my clients. None of my stuff that I put together is always coming from that place of, listen, you're good. Let's just see how far you can go now. Let's give you the tools to make sure you can be your best, so you can feel your best, and then you will actually do your best. You'll be able to perform your best as well.
What a world would we live in if we all started talking to each other that way and saying those things to each other, and our self-esteem and our worth and the lens that we see ourselves through when someone says, hey, you're not broken. You're whole, you're perfect, you're wonderful just the way you are, but let's optimize and let's see how good we can crank this thing.
Exactly.
To make it really be, to come from a place of that. Ooh,
it feels so much better. I would prefer that. Well, I do prefer that. So
Exactly. It's like it just makes it better when we start from that wholeness and that place of, just that place of, maybe it's not positivity is the right word, but everything doesn't have to be so hard. We make things so dang hard sometimes.
Oh, no kidding. We take ourselves so seriously. I mean, when I train other psychologists and we're working, and if I'm walking by their office and I hear laughter, I say, okay, good session, right? It's like, you know what I mean? And there's lots of laughter. We're talking to people, and even if you're dealing with heavy issues, life doesn't always have to be so heavy, right? And when we can laugh at ourselves, it's a little bit of a tool to help us get through, but it's also a symptom of good health when we can sort of laugh at ourselves, and even in the midst of stuff, see the humor in it. It helps us get through.
Absolutely. Now, your book, I loved your book. I read it like cover to cover. Well, it was actually in the ebook format, so I guess I can't say cover to cover, but starting screen to ending screen. I absolutely loved everything you were talking about, and how simple you broke it down in this holistic. I know we toss that word around a lot, but it wasn't just looking at your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions, and then it wasn't just looking at your health, like your physical or just your emotional. It was looking at everything from all the roles you are and all the ways that you do life and the things that come at you, and how to find that rhythm and that balance, and how to know when you need an emergency plan. So I want to dive right into this thought, because I think this is something that can help people now as we are workaholics, we are working longer hours, we are helping our children if you've got them, we're figuring out how to work beside our spouses, or maybe it's stressful that one spouse is going to work and one spouse is the other one is at home, one primarily has the kids, one doesn't. Maybe grandmas and grandpas are more in the mix and they weren't there before, and then you got in-law stuff you got to deal with.
And boundaries and how you set all that stuff up, and it can be a mess.
I want to dive into boundaries and boundaries and the emergency plan. I want to dive into that first. So you have an emergency plan, and you talked about that. Tell us a little bit about what this is and why you have one.
Absolutely. So let me give you some context, right? So this whole book, it's called The Me Factor, right? And this system is the system I use. And it's been tested in the lab of my life, okay? Because I was screwing up so badly that I needed some system to help me stay straight. We don't have enough time for me to tell you what my life looked like. But let me just say, it was like 60, 70, 80 hours a week on the road. You know what I mean? It was just crazy, right? And one day, and I talk about this in the book too, one day I woke up in this small town in northern Alberta, and I'd had this headache for a couple of weeks, and I did not know where I was. I couldn't figure it out, and it was scared the hell out of me.
And how,
because
and you were young, like you were.
oh, I can't even remember how, like in my 20s. I wasn't even,
Yeah.
well, I wasn't even 30 yet, I don't think.
Right.
Right. So 28, 29, something like that. And it's like, holy crap, I had a stroke. Right. And fortunately, it wasn't a stroke, but I canceled my day because I was just like everybody else listening. I was a pusher. I was pushing through, and that was my first really, really big burnout. And after that, I said, okay, I got to do something different. I was everything. I was the go-to guy in my family. I was like starting a business. I was like, I had a boss that was just sort of really intense. Well, he was intense, but I was intense on myself for him as
Yeah.
well. Do you know what I mean? And and because I was working in the field of psychology, I really felt the weight of wanting to help the people that I was serving, right? And so I neglected my health. I didn't sleep enough. It's all the other stuff that we do when we're, nose to the grindstone, shoulder to the plow, kind of pushing through to make it. And what was funny, Lisa, was that I kind of knew, right? I kind of knew that, oh, no, I would like balance. This is what I want my life to look like. But this is a special exception. This is an emergency. Oh, yeah, this other thing came up. What I didn't realize was my regular plan was living in crisis. That's what it turned out to be. My habit was crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis, which I always saw each one as a crisis in a special situation that I would get through, and then I'd be okay. Did you get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so what I had to do was I said, okay, when, after I was able to take a little bit of time off, get my feet under me, figure out it wasn't a stroke and be able to see my way clear, I said, I need a system. I don't trust myself to figure it out in the middle of it. Right. Because I'm going to default to my least functional way of being, or I'm going to give in to whoever's asked me to say yes instead of saying no. I need something, a policy and procedure that's going to help protect me so that I can stay in that healthy place. And so I built the system. And from that, what came was the emergency plan. So I understand that this is kind of like my owner's manual that I use to make sure I get the best performance, not just in terms of what happens outside of me, but like internal performance, like joy, well-being, quality of life, that kind of performance. But then also, I know that hiccups are going to happen. I'm going to go off the rails from time to time. I'm going to get sick, or I'm going to forget, or something's going to happen, right? And so what do I do when that happens? Well, here's the emergency plan. So now that I know that this is my owner's manual, you can go to the troubleshooting section. Okay, it's like, all right, so if this is happening, maybe it's one of these things, and if that's happening, it's one of these things. And so I now know that not only do I not have to trust myself to keep myself on the straight and narrow, but if something happens, I don't even have to trust myself to figure out what I need to do. I just go to the emergency plan and do one of those things, and it usually gets me back on the rails that keep me functioning the way I want to function.
Yeah, and what are some of your, like, go for a walk, do a martial arts class?
So so for sure, it's the big thing for me. One of the biggest ones I find for me personally is sleep. And if I'm off, it's usually either because I haven't had enough sleep, or as a consequence of being off, I don't get enough sleep because I'm not sleeping properly, right? So I'll make sure I create some space in my day to go and have a nap. I'll tell you one thing that happened. I was driving my kids to school one day, and it was November, December, and where I live in Edmonton, Alberta, it's cold, windy, snowy, right? And I was merging from one freeway onto another freeway. I shoulder checked, I looked in my mirror, I shoulder checked again, and I started to come over, a signal started to come over, and I hear, bang, somebody's giving me the finger, and like, okay, crap, right? How did I miss this guy? What I realized was, okay, yep, that's a really late stage symptom that I'm burnt out. So I took my time, I took the kids to school, dropped them off. I called my office, said, listen, I'm not coming in, canceled my day. I went home, I took a nap, I got up, I ate some food, I watched a comedy, went for a walk, took another nap, ate some more food. You know what I mean? I did some stuff that was going to feed me. I gave myself permission to power down. And permission, I've found, is extremely important as well. It's one thing to stop, But if you stop and you're feeling guilty and you're beating the crap out of yourself because you're not doing whatever at your whatever standard that you've made up for yourself, you're not really getting the benefit of being off anyway. Do you know what I mean? So you might
Yeah.
as well go to work and like limp through, but you're not gonna, nothing's gonna happen, right? So
Yeah.
gave myself permission. I stopped and I looked after myself, and I was much better the next day. But I also realized I had to change some of the procedures I was doing so that I wouldn't do it again, right?
Yeah. It's like if you're using that emergency plan a couple times a week,
Oh yeah.
you got to go back and look at what are your habits? What are you saying yes
Yep.
to? How many things are you saying yes
Yes.
to? I love that I gave myself permission to power down, because so
Yeah.
many people say that I can't call off work, I can't cancel that meeting, I can't not be here for this. Well, what's the alternative?
Well, if you're dead, the work's still not going to get done. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so we have to remember that in the bigger scheme of things,
Yeah.
we need to realize it's really a life and death thing. Just because it's not staring you in the face, like when I thought I had my stroke, it seemed like it was okay. It's staring me in the face, right? But we don't want you to get there. We don't want you to have to get there. I would say if you're using your emergency plan more than a couple times a year, then you need to really look at what you're doing, right? Really look at what you're doing, because there's something that's consistent with what you're doing that's burning you out pretty intensely.
And then it's interesting when you talk about in your book the me factor priority schematic. So we talked about, me first, which I think whether you're a man or a woman, that's so hard even just to hear that. Oh, I'm going to be so selfish. There's so much like shame that comes around, me first. But I love how you talk about, and we've heard it. It's like when, the oxygen in the airplane, you got to put the mask on yourself first before you can help, your child or help anyone else. And I think you even referenced in the book to being a lifeguard. Did you in there?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was a lifeguard. I was kind
Okay.
of, smiling when I was reading that, because I'm like, he's 100% right. That was my first job as a kid. I lifeguarded from like 15 to 18 before I went off to college. And they taught us about how if someone's trying to drag you down because they're panicking, you literally kick them in the chest and back away. And you're like, sir, ma'am, I'm not going to save you because they're like, you don't want two bodies going down.
That's right.
I'll take you down with them.
Yep.
In their panic. And we used to have like the bigger guy lifeguards do that to me as a 14, 15-year-old girl.
To teach you.
To teach me, but I
Yeah.
thought, wow, this is actually such a powerful lesson in commanding that situation so that you're in control. But you're right, it's like you don't, if you don't take care of yourself first, you're no good to all these other things that are important to you.
Absolutely. Well, listen, so I've been an entrepreneur for like decades now, right? But I've also been a parent. And whether it's your business or your kids, right? I've seen both. I work with entrepreneurs a ton in my practice and my coaching and stuff like that. And when they go down, the business goes down, right? And I can't tell you how many kids I've seen, and usually I see them as adults whose parents were absent because they were unwell, right? They were burnt out, or they were too busy, or they were sick, or they were always pissed off, or they had a drug or alcohol or substance abuse problem because they're trying to cope, not because they're bad, but because they're trying to self-medicate themselves into being able to be functional or whatever, right? And it all boils down to this. It boils down to, we are not taught that important lesson that you learned as a lifeguard, or if we are taught it, we're taught it in a certain circumstance or certain situation, and we don't realize that it's a principle of life and it applies across the board, right? If we're not in good working order, everything that we care about is going to suffer. So it seems selfish. And, I love that you said the me first, because that was the name of the program before, but people had they were losing their minds. Oh, me first, what? You can't do that, right? So, okay, we'll call it the me factor. Me factor, softer, right? Yeah. But it's the same thing. You got to look after yourself first. And if you don't have that, then in time you will erode whatever it is you're looking after. Or, you see, we talked about the priority schematic, right?
Yes.
I've seen people who sacrifice everything for, and a lot of times it's kids, okay, whether it's a mom or a dad. They sacrifice for the kids. The kids are the center of their lives. They do all this stuff for the kids. Well, we're missing a fundamental truth of parenting. Parenting, two things. One is it's kind of a thankless job. Okay, supposed to be anyway. We work ourselves out of a job. That's our job, is to work ourselves out of a job, right? So if I sacrifice myself for my child is supposed to move on. That's the whole purpose of this. We're supposed to give them the tools so they can launch and be successful in life. If that happens, even if I do a crappy job and they sort of still kind of get out because they want to escape from us, I'm going to start to be resentful because, well, what's left? And so I'm not actually going to want that child to go, or I'm going to sabotage the child, or I'm going to make the child feel guilty, or I'm going to, do whatever, or I'm going to be bitter and stay at home and drink and, raise cats, or because, you know what I mean? I just want to have something to love me because this person, this entity, business, child, person, spouse, whoever that I invested in didn't fulfill me. Well, the truth is that's your job. That's not somebody else's job. That's a hard thing to hear, but it's the only thing that works.
You see that so much with parenting, and it's true with the business or a job. It's like when people retire, they're so lost because they wrap their whole identity in that role or that job.
Yep.
Or that marriage. If that marriage, if your whole identity is to be the perfect wife or the perfect husband, and then that doesn't work out.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You've lost more than just the partner, right? Or the business. And and this is why it's so dangerous when people don't understand this particular concept. But the flip side, because we always want to be positive, right? The flip side is, if you take the responsibility, if you can accept that this is yours, that you have to do this, and it takes some discipline and some practice and stuff like that, right? But if you, for example, work this program that's laid out, all of a sudden, you don't have to be resentful of your kids or your business or your spouse or your parents or whoever. You actually have a richer relationship with them because there's none of this other underlying crap in the space, right? And no, I can say no, and they can not be happy with me, but that's okay. I still love them, and I'll still come back, and we'll have a better relationship because now I know I'm in charge of me, and I don't feel like a hostage, right? I know I can devote this extra week to the business because I know that next week I'm taking this time off and we're going to go on vacation. I'm just going to stay home and just hang out with the kids because I know that I wanted to do that, right? And it's a healthy, responsible thing. So just by doing this, by taking that first step to look after yourself and be able to say no when you need to, you actually have more to give to the things that are important to you, the people that are important to you. You get actually more out of it, and you get to enjoy what you're doing, right? So they benefit and you benefit because you had the guts to be able to do things in a different way than we're typically taught in our culture.
Yeah, I love when you talk about that with boundaries, like what to say no to, and no period is a whole sentence. And again, the negative, like there's just such a negative feeling around a boundary, like, oh, I'm going to tick somebody off, or I'm going to make somebody upset, or I think boundaries are such an empowering thing when you know who you are, you know what you want and you don't want, and you're not afraid, you're not trying to upset someone, or you're just saying, no, this is how I live my life, or this is what's important to me. You describe boundaries as a double-walled fence with gates. Yes.
So, if you look at the me factor schematic, right? So it looks like a target, right? Yeah. So in the middle, it's got me. Then the next circle out is the partner, if you have that, and the next circle out's the kids, and there's a bigger wall around that, and then there's extended family and friends, and then work, right? So the idea of the double-walled fence is that if there's something on the inside, well, let me say, the inside is a higher priority than the outside. So anything that's coming in from the outside, from whatever other layers, has to be good for the stuff that's on the inside in order to come in. We don't always know that, right? And so what we want to do is, let's say it's a grandparent. This is a common one. An in-law wants to say or give you parenting advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody in your world wants to give you business advice, right? Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need to do this, right? So what you do is you open the first gate, you bring it into that middle no man's land in there, and you figure out, is this good for everything on the inside? Is this advice going to help with my kids, with my spouse, with me and my health and my well-being? If it does, okay, cool. It's safe. I'm going to open the inner gate and let it in. If it's not, I'm going to say, nope, the inner gate stays closed, kick it back out and shut the outer gate. Thanks for playing, right? We have the right to do that. And the problem is we don't know this, and most of us don't take the time to analyze things in that way to see if it's going to be good for the stuff on the inside, right? And so we just say yes because we want to be good people. We don't want to disappoint people, whatever it might be. But we end up hurting them in the long run because, I heard this saying that says if you can't say no, then your yeses are irrelevant. They don't mean anything, right? Your yeses carry no weight. But every time you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else. And usually it's yourself or your kids or other things that are important to you, typically your health, right? And so we need to understand that it's our right to say no, but it's also our responsibility to say no.
Yeah.
You're probably too young to remember this song, but there was a song in the 70s that said, you got to be cruel to be kind. And that was the name of the song. And it was a big hit actually. But it was really about, it was about breaking up with someone. You got to tell them the truth. You got to be real. And so in a sense, you got to be cruel to be kind to them so that they understand this is what it is. And you're free to move on now. Right. And it's the same sort of thing that we're dealing with here. We have to be, quote unquote, cruel. We have to be hard. We have to be clear so that people understand who we are, what they're getting into, and we can have clean relationships and clean interactions with people.
I've never heard boundaries taught like that and talked about like that. And to me, it makes it less scary for people that really don't even know what a boundary is, don't know when a boundary's been crossed, they've never even thought that they even have the option to say no.
Right.
It makes it more doable and actionable when you're like, hey, you can actually have two levels of walls that can open, you can let them into the first barrier, right? You don't have to just say no, bye, see you later. You can take some time to assess, and then you still have the right to say no.
Well, this is it, right? I mean, we don't give ourselves permission to take our time to look at this.
Yes.
Right? We typically think, okay, I've been hurt before, so screw everybody, I'm locking down the shop, right? And nothing's getting in, right? And then we just kind of wither and die, right? Or, oh no, I want to be a good person, I want to be kind, you want people to like me. Wide open, right? And just then your whole life energy just leaks out, right? Either way, it's not good. So you want to be able to have that ability to I don't know. I'm not saying no. Let me see. Let me look at it and see if it works. And if it's good, I'll let it in. If it's not, no, not today, or thanks, or appreciate it, but it's not going to happen, right? And for me, Lisa, this is why I was so bad at this. This is why I had to write this down. And before I wrote the book, I actually recorded a CD. Like I made an audio recording, and I would listen to that over and over and over in the car, over and over, to brainwash myself into this way of thinking because it was not natural for me. Yeah. And I needed the system to keep me safe, basically.
Yeah.
Right? But I started sharing with clients, and they said, oh, I could use that. And when are you going to write the book? So I wrote the book, and everybody, now anybody can have access to that. But it really it's a very personal model to me because I needed the system. Otherwise I would consistently give in. I would consistently say yes when I should say no. Yeah. I would offer stuff. I did it yesterday. Like literally, just so you know, right? I'm not a master at this. I did it yesterday. I said yes, so I'm committed to do something after we're done here that I probably should have said no to. but I forgot and I didn't work my system the way I needed to. So it's crap. Okay, let me take care of that. But I'm paying attention to it for the future.
I love that it's a system. I love that everything you do is a system, because when we're left to our own devices in the moment or our feelings, I used to be the same. There could not be an open space on my calendar. If there was like a white space, I had to fill it with something. And yeah, sure, I can meet at that time. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Yeah. And then I look at my day and I'm like, oh my God, I have 8 meetings today. When am I going to eat lunch? Like, when am I going to go pee? When am I going to get outside in the sunshine if we have it?
Yeah.
So I love that it's a system to go back to really prioritizing you and those people and those things that are important to you, by making sure, again, you're always the center of that target.
Yeah.
It's always you first, and it just has to be that way.
Many of us heard the little story when we were kids about the goose who laid the golden egg, right? I love that little fable, right? Yeah. And the idea is that, you got the farmer has the goose, and it's getting, he gets these golden eggs. He gets, oh, thank goodness I'm rich, right? But he gets, impatient. He goes out to get all the eggs at once, cuts open the goose, kills the goose, right? And then no more golden eggs, right? But this is what we do. We are the farmer and we are also the goose. And if we kill ourselves, we kill our production. We kill our ability to create the golden eggs in our lives. And so we have to feed the goose. We got to look after the goose. And it's our responsibility because we're the farmer too, right?
Yes.
And so and it's like you said, I find for me, I can't just keep thinking my way through. Just give me a program, let me run the program. It's easy, right? And eventually the program becomes a habit, and that's just my way of being then.
And I think it's good to have that when things are going good and when things are not going good. Just that consistency of knowing your boundaries, your priorities, how you play with others, how you communicate, how you parent.
That's right.
I mean, this book just has everything from your finances to your spirituality, to your physical, to your emotional, to your parenting, to your spouses. Every aspect is in there. And I just think it's like a guidebook that I think everyone should pick up.
Well, I looked at it, and what I've experienced, because I've had those experiences in my life where I kind of had my crap together in one area, but then something else would fall apart. And then the area I was together in would fall apart too, right? Yeah. And so I really realized that you got to cover all of it and make sure there's it's all in decent working order. Now listen, and you're not going to be a 10 out of 10 on everything, right?
Right.
But if you're at least a 6 out of 10 on most things, then you can you have enough in the tank then to be able to start working on some of these other things, right? And the stuff that you're 9 out of 10 on, great. That gives you fuel to work on the stuff you're 4 out of 10 on, Yeah. But yeah, it is. We're not just entities to make money. We're not just parents. We're not just spouses, right? We're all of these things, and these are roles we have, but they're not who we are. Right? We're humans, and we're complicated. And so we need to really consider all of these aspects of ourselves, because, a scary quote that I read from Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits guy, right?
Love him.
Yeah, me too. He said, it's really disheartening. I'm paraphrasing. It's disheartening when you climb the ladder of success. You get all the way to the top, and then you realize that it's been leaning against the wrong wall the whole time, right? That's just, that keeps me up at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to have to go through that and realize that they've left off the important stuff while they were pursuing what they thought or somebody told them was success.
Yeah, you can't go back.
Right.
I wish you could. I wish we had a time machine.
Yep.
That could take us back, but it's, what do you do then when you learn? And you it's all a learning opportunity, but it's like, This is life now.
Well,
We've landed. We are here now.
right. Well, this is the, I guess, one of the other silver linings to this whole pandemic experience that we're going through right now. I tell people that it's like the whole world is going through a midlife crisis at the same time, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of waking up and saying, okay, the stuff I thought was important, maybe it wasn't that important, and maybe let me see if I really want to live my life this way going forward, right? And if we do this correctly, we can then be much more conscious and deliberate about how we want to go forward in life. And then that way we have the rest of our lives to enjoy the fruits of that decision.
So powerful. Now you have resources for them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to they're going, what's this system or what's this thing I should be doing in my emergency plan and the schematic and the thing? Where can they find all of these goodies or this goodness?
Well, if you want more of me or more of this, and one of the reasons we put this together was because a lot of times people listen to a podcast or they read a book or they go to a workshop and they don't have the follow-up, right? They don't like, oh, that's great, I got this inspiration, but I don't know how to keep it going, right? Keep the inertia going, right? So the first place that people should go is askdrgansvip.com. So ask DRGANZ or Z, depending where you are in the world, VIP.com. And, free resources, free follow-up that will help people get further, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to know about the book, then you can go to the website, which is askdrgans.com. So it's the same thing, just without the VIP.com. And then just look up the Me Factor in the search function, and you can get a copy of the ebook there. But yeah, there's tons of other resources on the website as well. But the VIP link really is, I think that's the place that most people should go to get, really simple, user-friendly things that they can put into practice today.
I love that. I love your generosity. I love your generosity to give these tools when people need it. I mean, we definitely need it the most now, but the truth is we need it all the time.
Well, absolutely. And I'll let you in a secret. I'm kind of selfish, because I know that if you do better and everybody else does better, then we're all going to create a better society, and I'm going to benefit from the better society. We're going to be better at our jobs. We're going to be kinder to our kids. We're going to make better decisions in terms of the environment and politically. And everything's going to go better if we feel better. The better you feel, the better you do, generally, right? Yeah. And so I'm kind of, it's self-serving. I want everybody to be happy, so we create a happy world for everybody.
Right. So. It's like that quote, I can't do everything, but many people can do something. Right?
Yes.
I can't do
beautiful.
everything, but many people can do something, and this is our something. Take care of yourself. It starts with you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Ganz, thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing all your generous tools and knowledge, and just who you are as a person is so contagious and just wonderful to be around in a good way, not a bad way. Not like,
you got careful when you say contagious nowadays, but
right, that's a bad word to use in pandemic, but beautiful, energy that you just give off to people. You make it so approachable to talk about where you are in your life and where you want to go. And I just love that. How good can it be? Lead with how good can it be? So thank you for your work, and thank you for being on this podcast with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I could talk to you forever, and so you're so easy. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
You got it. And thank you, listeners, for being here. I hope this is an episode you'll go back to and that you'll listen to over and over again, because life can jolt us from times, and we need to know we're not alone. We need to know that you've got tools. You don't have to navigate things on your own. And for sure, go to that website. Don't worry if you didn't have a pen and paper handy. I will put it in the show notes so you know exactly how to get in touch with Dr. Ganz, his beautiful resources for you, his Me Factor book, and all those good things. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on The Lisa Pizik Show.